Welcome Yamhill County to Speaking Frankly. I'm your host, Howie Harkema, and our tagline is, "And how we doin'?" Today is a very special episode, our 100th episode since I came involved in Speaking Frankly, and it's been a wonderful journey. We thank you all for watching the shows. Today my guests are our crew and our staff from Speaking Frankly, and they're going to talk about an inspirational video that they were involved in while shooting the Speaking Frankly show. And so my first guest today is Paul Weber, who is also our director, also one of our camera people, and our editor. Paul, thank you so much for being on today.
Hi, Howie. Thanks for having me on.
It's fantastic to have you on, brother. So, what was an inspirational video for you that we've shot in the last 2.5 years?
Well, I chose Farm Fest. It's a show that you recently did a couple of months ago. Your viewers learned that it's put on and overseen by the Yamhill County Historical Society.
Right.
And you had on Tony Meeker, Wayne Beckwith, and Pam Watts, all great people with the society. They do a great job each and every year. It's held, I think, in August.
Yeah, the Harvest Fest is, Farm Fest is usually in March or April.
March, right. They do both the Farm Fest and Harvest Fest. It's just a great event. It spotlights and showcases Yamhill County, what farming was like back in the day. It's a great event. The feature out there is always the field plowing competition.
Yeah.
Everybody looks forward to that. It's a pretty big deal. They have a blacksmith area where you can watch all kinds of stuff being made. In the main two buildings, they've got artifacts and antiques of what farming was like.
Right, the implements and all kinds of stuff.
It's all there.
Yeah.
It's all there every year. It's a wonderful event to take your family. You can come by yourself. Anything. That's the one I chose. I go out there every year. I see you out there every year, working the food booth. It's a community event. It's a great one.
And it's well attended.
Oh, it's well attended.
Thousands of people
It's
go.
well attended. Last year they had, I think, somewhere around over 500 people go through.
2,500 on Farm Fest and about another 600 or so on Harvest Fest.
Yeah, it's a great draw. It's a great draw. They get a lot of people out there every year. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at the clip?
Let's go. Today I have 3 guests. They're all people from Yamhill Valley Heritage Center, and we're going to talk about Farm Fest. My first guest is Wayne Beckwith. Wayne, nice to have you with us.
Thanks for inviting
Pam
me.
Watts.
Hi.
Nice to have you with us. Tony Meeker.
Hi.
Nice to have you with us on Speaking Frankly. And Farm Fest has been around for a while, so we're going to talk about the background history of Yamhill Valley Heritage Center, when it was visualized and when it was constructed. Tony, would you talk about that?
Sure. Early in the 21st century, a local farm family had this vision of a museum that told the story of the Yamhill County and the Yamhill Valley agriculture and forestry. And the first groundbreaking was in 2007, and it's come a long way to today. There's over $3 million worth of investment in buildings out there. When you think about it, it started with a concrete slab in one building, and now it's grown, and it's really a testimony to the community spirit of the Yamhill Valley, because the bulk of that money was raised here locally to do all of that.
Isn't that awesome?
It's amazing. And all volunteer. There's no paid staff out there. It's pretty amazing.
Talk to me a little bit about some of the different implements that are in the museum itself.
Well, the museum is really, it started out as ag and forestry equipment, and has evolved into a significant collection of horse-drawn vehicles. We have over 88 antique tractors. But in addition to that, we have an 1890s sawmill. We have a complete operating blacksmith shop. Schoolhouse has been moved in from just a few miles outside of Yam Hill, the Hutchcroft School.
Yeah, that has been brought in within the last couple of years.
Yeah, it's about 3 or 4 years ago we brought that in and completely refurbished it, and it's really a beautiful building, a real attribute to the people who got that done. There were over 100 school districts in Yam Hill County alone in the late 1800s.
Goodness. Is the Yam Hill Valley Heritage Center Museum part of the Yam Hill County Historical Society?
Yes, it is. The Yam Hill County Historical Society started in the 1950s and has evolved into really a two-site operation. We have a historic museum and log house at near the Poling Church site in Lafayette, and additionally the Heritage Center. And so the Heritage Center is really owned and operated by the Yam Hill County Historical Society.
So how many years has Farm Fest been going on?
It's been going on at least 10 years, but you wouldn't recognize it when it first started to what it is today. It's really evolved into a premier event, not only in this area, but in all of Western Oregon.
It's not surprising. It's a beautiful facility out there, and a lot of people in the community love to go out for Farm Fest and Harvest Fest.
Yes, they do. We have attracted people from all over, not only just this community, but Portland and beyond.
Yeah. So our next interviewee is Andrew Floratos, who's also one of our directors and camera people. So welcome, Andrew.
Nice to be here in the room, in the chair.
Yes,
even.
rather than being in the control room or behind the camera.
It's an interesting change of pace.
Yes.
I could get used to it, but
Awesome.
I'm afraid I won't be, at least not for a while.
Yeah.
Afraid I'm needed back there.
So what interview was inspiring to you that you've been involved in here?
Well, man, it's been a lot of them, but and some of them I can't even remember now. But I definitely remember the First Baptist Church's 150th anniversary.
Yes.
It was really fun, especially because two of the people you interviewed are people I actually know personally. One of them, J.P. Beerley, and then the other, Susan Chambers. I've met a couple times. They've come into the bakery, of course, as well. And it also kind of spoke to this show today because it's your 100th
episode.
Yeah, it's the 100th episode. So not quite as long as them.
No.
But maybe someday it'll get there. But they're always going to be ahead of us.
I don't want to be 200 years old.
Oh man, it might get a little tiresome after a bit. Yeah.
Well, thank you for all you do here with us.
Oh my goodness, it's so much fun, especially working with the crew and you and getting to meet all these different people and stuff. It's really enlightening.
Good.
And it's just a fun time. It's just a good time. Yeah.
Paul, if you would. So we want to get into these concerts. So Paul, if you could zoom up on this maybe. This is a brochure that First Baptist has put out that talks about 6 concerts that began in October and go all the way through May 13th. So JP and Charlie, the floor is yours.
Well, I guess I would want to say that why music? We wanted to make a gift to the community, but why music? Because music has been very, very important in this church. Marion Van Dyke, for 34 years, was music minister. JP has been there over 10 years. People tend to really devote themselves substantially to making this work. So when we were thinking, we want to engage community, that's what we've been doing for 150 years, let's do music. So then we said, well, but what kind of music? And we said, all kinds of music,
yes,
because we have all kinds of interest in this community. And so the 6 concerts that are in this brochure, and that hopefully everyone listening to this program has heard about, or if they haven't heard, we want them to hear now. We started with the organ, because the most basic part of the church, the sanctuary, dates to 1926. Mm-hmm. Very shortly thereafter, one of the first pipe organs that entered Yam Hill County was constructed at First Baptist Church with, I'm told, 5,000 pipes behind the scene and a set of chimes. So we said we want to renew that. And JP took the lead, spent a substantial amount of money to make that organ tick properly. And so we had that concert in in October. That's over. The next concert is the 20th of this month, November, 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's a jazz concert. Then there's a Christmas concert.
That's right. On December 4th, the church will come together, musicians in the church will come together and offer music to the community, all around the theme of light. We've seen a great light is the theme for this year, and that concert's always a lot of fun. And Charlie.
And then in January, a local group, the Humley School of Music.
Yes.
Those people are going to put on a contemporary music concert, much of which has been written by them themselves. Then we move to the concert that will travel the longest distance to get here. It's a group from England. 4 people from England are touring this country, and there'll be piano, cello, violin, and clarinet. And they'll do classical music. And then we'll end the concert season with...
Yeah, on May 13th, after the Gould Piano Trio, on May 13th we'll have another concert that's all of the musicians. We're going to focus for that concert on bringing back some of the musicians that made music at the church in the past. We're hoping to get some of the former music ministers. Of course, that was more than 10 years ago now, and many of them now live quite a ways away. But we're hoping to invite them to return to make music in celebration. And all of these concerts, the information for them and the dates and times can be found on our website, www.fbcmac.org, and information as it changes or is updated is put on that website for that concert series. And that concert series is completely free of charge.
It's a gift.
It's a gift to the community, and it's a way of us saying, come celebrate with us. And we're taking the medium of music because that seems to be a universal way of celebrating in our society.
My next guest is our camera one person, and his name is Joseph Latarte. He's been with us for about 8 months now. Joseph, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Howie. It's great to be here. Well, here again.
Again, and you're in a different chair than usual.
Yeah.
So what inspirational video did you choose?
Well, I was really moved by a young lady who was published a book, who had actually written that great American novel, and who actually was publishing on a very serious topic. And it was one of my very first shows, and I was just like, I love to read. I was a library aide, and I always joke about writing the great American novel, and this woman actually had done that, and it was a very serious topic. It wasn't like some dime store novel that you buy at Circle K or something. It was a very serious book on disarmament and peace, world peace, and nuclear disarmament, which I was very instrumental in because I was like in Give Peace a Dance and in the peace movement, the peace project and stuff like that. And so I always like tippy-toe. I was, typewriter. I always thought that in Act 1, Scene 1, and that, which is what you do, and and then the publishing, the publishing aspect, being involved in publishing is great. It was a great thing, my heart goes out to her, and I hope she sold 1 million copies,
Well, let me talk about her just for a minute. Her name is, she's author, and her name is Kathy Beckwith, and she wrote this book called A Mighty Case Against War. And so we're going to go ahead and run that video. Today my guest is author Kathy Beckwith, and she's written a new book called A Mighty Case Against War. Welcome, Kathy Beckwith.
Thank you, Howard.
Thank you for being on Speaking Frankly. So, Kathy, for 239 years, we've been a nation, and out of those 239 years, 222 of those years, we've been in a conflict or a war. That's 93% of the time. So, your book, A Mighty Case Against War, is so important at this time in our history. Thank you so much for writing this.
I'm glad I could take the project on, Howie. And I think just the information you gave, of course, conflict is a part of life, and nations will be in conflict. The key is how we determine as a nation we will resolve that conflict.
That's right.
And I have a personal hunch that America got off on the wrong foot.
Yeah.
And maybe I can say more of that about
Please,
that a little.
please.
Yeah. Well, we had an amazing thing going on. The colonists were had skills like we read now and think, really, my gosh, they were amazing to defy what was happening, to see the injustice that was happening to them, and be extremely creative in all kinds of ways of not cooperating.
Right.
And networking like crazy with each other. When they were closed down as legislatures, they went into the tavern next door and continued meeting. When they were told you will pay for the damages done to that tea in the harbor, they refused to pay. When they were required to buy and affix a stamp to all kinds of papers to make them legal, they defied it. They wouldn't do it. They said, we are not going to be intimidated by laws that are unjust.
Right.
And from that point on, I've many times wondered, what would our heritage be if they had also refused to pick up the guns and start a bloody revolution, and instead had said and done those things non-violently. They drank herbal tea instead of importing the tea. They learned how to spin wool for clothing and flax for clothing instead of importing the British fabric. Until the British merchants cried out, our profits are being lost. Parliament, do something about this. So things were changing. But it's hard to be patient when it seems like you don't know how long before the change is going to be exactly the way you want it. And we stopped, and we gave it up and turned to war. And I think you're right. We've been on a course where conflict is resolved by war over and over and over again. And that's what I discovered as I started working on this book.
Very good. So my next crew member and staff member is Angela Jane Howard. She runs Camera 3 on the show, and she's been with us for about 5 months. Thank you for being here, Angela. So what was an inspirational video for you that you were involved in on Speaking Frankly?
Well, being behind the camera is kind of a neat experience, but when they started talking, I could feel their heart. And because this is a difficult subject for a lot of people, for families and stuff, the key is the heart and living life to the fullest, even near the end. I'd say Willamette Valley Hospice was mine. That got me.
And so my interview guests that day were Horacio Gomez and Darlene Corral. So if you would, please. I have two guests with me today. They're both from Willamette Valley Hospice. And first of all, we have Darlene Corral, who is a licensed clinical social worker and medical social worker. Welcome, Darlene.
Thank you.
And we have Horacio Gomez, licensed massage therapist and Yamhill County outreach coordinator. Horacio,
good to see you.
Nice to have you on Speaking Frankly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So our topic, as you heard, is about Willamette Valley Hospice. So what is Willamette Valley Hospice?
Willamette Valley Hospice is a nonprofit hospice organization that's based out of West Salem. We serve various patients out in Yamhill County, Marion County, Polk County, and Benton County as well.
Very good.
It is also a community-based hospice. The board of directors, support us a lot. And if any of the employees have any ideas to share, supervisors and the executive director are more than open to. Technically, you listen to us, and they develop new programs based on that.
That's awesome. And you guys are one of the only nonprofit hospices in the area.
That's correct.
That's really awesome. A lot of people don't know that. So could you give us a short background history on Willamette Valley Hospice?
You can go ahead.
Willamette Valley Hospice was founded in 1978 by Helen Murray. She was a director of community health for Marion County, and she invited members in the community to come together and talk about, you know, what were the issues that were affecting the community that were facing terminal illnesses,
Sure.
and they wanted to try and find something, a way to help them, and that's how the Hospice Interest Group was founded and started Willamette Valley
And it was a
Hospice.
very large contingent of people.
It was.
Yeah, there were originally 33 people that were involved in this project.
Fantastic.
And eventually, the years went by, hospice, of course, they started getting busier and busier.
Sure.
The funding came from the United Way, most of it, as well as foundations, foundations and private donations.
Sure.
As hospice developed more and more, the name in the society, it came to a point where they had to apply for a Medicare as well. So there was also a $30,000 donation to do that kind of the fee that was made, and also a $10,000 donation that was anonymous to make that happen.
Wow, that's incredible. So you guys being a nonprofit, you have to have a mission and vision statement. So what is the mission statement?
I'm going to read those.
No, please, yes, we all have notes.
The mission statement is changing the end-of-life experience. The vision statement is a world where everyone facing serious illness, death, and grief has access to the best personalized care.
That's great. Frank Nelson, a toast, not a roast. We're only going to be able to play about 7 minutes and 41 seconds worth of the interview with Frank and Barbara Nelson. We did this, it was an hour and 20-minute special a couple years ago when Frank handed off to us to do this work. The people who were involved in the actual interview were Martha Van Cleve, Dr. Charles Walker, Chuck Howell, Linda Philippi, Jerry Eichten, and Denise Bacon. So Frank passed away in November of 2016. He was a mentor to a number of us here. He was an incredible gentleman. We have a total respect and in honor of Frank that we're going to run this. Frank did this show, speaking frankly, for 17 years, and will never live up to the magnitude of what he was able to accomplish with the show, but we're doing the best that we can to make a difference in our community. So Paul, if you would. So as we move on, my next guest for this wonderful, wonderful event is Martha Van Cleve from First Baptist Church and from Linfield College. And Martha's going to toast, not roast you. We find that a roast can be mean-spirited and that a toast is something that we love. And we certainly love you, Frank. So Martha, thank you.
Thank you, Howie. And Frank, it's great to be here.
You know, this is a toast to me to
Right.
see and hear all beautiful.
Yes, good to see you, Barbara. Well, it brings me great pleasure to bring tribute from First Baptist to you, Frank. You've been a cherished member and active participant at the church since the early 70s, and as an ordained Baptist minister, you've been deeply committed in your own faith journey and to encouraging others on their individual paths. Personally, I've always respected you, Frank, because of your generous spirit and your deep convictions. But there are others at First Baptist who know you on a different level as their pastor. And so I asked some of our former pastors at First Baptist to make some comments. So I asked Bernie Turner, who is pastor emeritus of First Baptist and your neighbor, what he wanted to share in this event. And he started by saying that when you came to Linfield, you were working on that PhD. And as the years went by and the degree was not completed, it became that damn degree. And the problem with that damn degree was there were all those distractions. You know, there was the doing the research and going down another track and getting all involved in something else that Wasn't part of the plan. And then there was that fascination with drama and those gallery players and all that distraction and still no damn degree. And of course, then there were the politics, and you truly have been Mr. Democrat for Yamhill County and made this county a better place, but that damn degree. Well, just for the record, Bernie wants you to know that he's grateful that you did it your way and just said, to hell with that damn degree.
He was my pastor.
He was. When the church celebrated its 125th anniversary back in the late 80s, it was a great celebration, and you were a great part of that. That's what Bernie told me, the great drama and gusto of the 125th celebration. And you know, we're heading for another big celebration at First
We'll have to have
Baptist.
another celebration.
That was 125? We must be coming up on 150. It'll be another great celebration. Frank was moderator at the church during the last years of Bernie's tenure as pastor, and at that time the church was delving deep into the GLBT issues. And you may remember that time, Frank, and it was a hard time for a lot of us as we wrestled with our own personal convictions because it was new territory.
Yes, it was.
It was very new territory. And there you were, Frank, you were moderator of the board.
Yeah.
And you stayed the course and kept the church going in the right direction through that time. And then along came the next pastor, Kent Harrop. And so I asked Kent what he would share about Frank. Well, Kent's first recollection of Frank was when he first met you when he was interviewing for the position at First Baptist. And the idea was that Kent would be meeting with the congregation to answer their questions and get to know him a little bit. But first, Frank would take him to breakfast. Well, of course, Frank got so engrossed in the conversation, he totally lost track of time.
Imagine that.
Imagine that. By the time they left breakfast, they were 30 minutes late. Well, Kent was terribly apologetic, but the people said, "Oh, that's okay. We knew you were with Frank. We knew you would be late." What Kent came to understand and love about Frank is that Frank operated on his own time frame. But when you were with Frank, Frank gave you 100% of his attention. Sure, he might lose track of time and be late for whatever was next, but that was just Frank's way. He gave you his heart, his mind, his attention. What a gift. What a gift. Inspired by your upbringing, Frank, you've become a bleeding heart liberal.
No kidding.
And to that, Kent says, thank God. For we need more bleeding heart liberals that are moved to act on behalf of the poor and the voiceless. So Frank, to this very day, you're a consistent and compelling voice for the well-being of others, especially for the children of limited means so that they might have the same access to education that you did. But to fully know and understand Frank is to know that you're a person of deep faith. Your advocacy and compassionate spirit are rooted in your relationship with Jesus. For Frank, working for the common good is an embodiment of your faith, a response to the words of Jesus in Matthew 25, "Whatever you do to the most vulnerable of these, you do to me."
Wow. You bring tears to my eyes.
Well, Frank, you've brought tears to our eyes many times with all that you've given and done. You're generous and loving. On many Sundays, Kent says you would say to him at the end of sermon, "That's the best sermon you've preached. And I'm so glad you're my pastor." Well, Kent says, this is why I love Frank, because he was so generous in his love to me and is so generous in his love to so many others. That's why we honor you today, Frank.
Wow.
You continue to teach us all how to live in community and how to take care of each other. In closing, Kent says, thank you, Frank, for all you've done and continue to do for so many. My love to you and Barbara and all you hold close to your heart. Tricia and I say thank you for the gift of your friendship.
And I say thank you for this. I don't deserve all
Oh,
this.
yes, you do. Do I have time for one more little
Yes,
story?
one more little
One
one.
more short little story. In closing, I have one more story. A few weeks ago, the members of First Baptist gathered for a Hawaiian luau. There was good food, there was great fellowship, and after dinner there was music and dancing. And Barbara and Frank were in the heart of it, enjoying themselves. And it came time to depart, and Barbara went to get the car, and Frank was
To
left
help him.
was left standing at the edge of the dance floor, tapping his toes and his cane. And by the time Barbara came back with the car, there was Frank dancing. Who knew Frank Nelson could still cut a rug?
He's a
Thank you.
stepper.
He's a stepper.
You're
So
telling everything, aren't you?
I am.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Martha, so much for being on and for all the honoring of Frank.
Thank you.
Episode without Frank. And we'd like to thank Jerry Eichten, the Executive Director of McMinnville Community Media, Ian Palo, Philip Gusso for all their technical expertise and booking times. So thank you, everybody, for watching the show. It's been a great experience, and it's a wonderful milestone to reach 100 episodes. So if the crew would all come in, thank you so much.